Subcommittee, January 13th, 2021. And the first item is the approval of the December 9th, 2021 minutes. Anybody have any changes to those minutes? I did not either. So those are good to go. So Maria, were you going to make a change or talk about what we're doing differently on the agenda today?
Yeah. So the union reached out to us, and one of their participants was unable to attend this morning. So we will not cover that particular item this morning. So we can move past the grievance item and go right to our next agenda item.
Okay. So our grievance item, does that include 2, 3, and 4? Because they're all related.
Correct.
Okay. So item 5 is getting an oral update on the hiring in just what's going on with the town planner role and the recruitment process and stuff like that. So I'm going to turn that over to Maria.
Well, thanks, Wendy. And I'm hoping you don't mind me, Wendy, indulging me a little bit this morning, just since, again, Amber is new and joining our group. But just a little bit of background. So under the charter, my particular position serves as the personnel director. But a lot of the day-to-day operations for the human resources function, Eric Gomes, who's our HR coordinator and joining us this morning, he does a lot of our day-to-day. He does a great job with it. He's a very experienced and talented HR professional, and he does a lot with our recruitments. And then Tom Fitzgerald in our office also does a lot with our HR work and recruitments as well. So for this particular position, we have gone ahead and posted the opening. So we are currently, hey, morning, Sean.
Good morning, guys. Sorry, computer issues. Keep going.
No worries. I was having computer issues this morning too. It must be a common theme. So as I mentioned, we have posted the position. We are currently accepting applications for the position. Typically, with a department head level search, we cast a wide net because we may get somebody locally, we may get somebody from the state, we may get somebody nationally. So it is an open search at the moment. Also for department head interviews, what we've typically been doing for some time now is we'll start with a first round panel where we run what we call an internal panel and an external panel concurrently on those days. The external panel is typically at least 3 professionals in the field in our sort of greater Hartford area, sometimes a little wider throughout the state, but essentially 3 technical professionals who will evaluate the candidate's technical abilities and knowledge. The internal panel will often consist of some of our key stakeholders. In the case of a department head that supports elected boards, we have typically involved the chairs of those elected boards. So for the planning director position, we would invite the chairs of planning, zoning, and ZBA. I have reached out to those individuals and they are all willing and able to help and happy to help us out, which is terrific. And because in our charter, we do have some wording that says upon, the town manager's essentially recommendation and appointment of a person to, and it lists a number of positions, but the Board of Selectmen still needs to then, officially appoint the person. So typically we've had a Board of Selectmen member involved in that level. The first round of recruitments with the interviews as well, as mentioned, Sean sat in on some of those. Chris Peterson has, I think Mike Payne and Eric at different points as we've recruited for various positions over the years. And then from there, we'll typically whittle it down to a smaller group of candidates. And for our second round, we'll bring back a smaller number of finalists. They really will usually spend the day here and they'll meet departmental staff. They'll have some time with Melissa and I. We will provide them a tour of the town and the community. They do an interview with our leadership team. That's a very important dynamic for us with our department head group. It's a very high functioning group. It's a great team. They support one another. And so that's, again, I think an important interview. And then we'll typically set up other key stakeholders. In this case, for example, an opportunity for the Main Street Partnership to meet with this person, et cetera. We also, for our finalists at this level, will generally require writing samples. And then for the preferred candidate, we ultimately do a fairly extensive background and reference check. So it is a bit of a lengthy process, but again, for our upper level leadership positions, we want to make sure that we're really getting the right person. And so that is essentially the plan.
I had a question. So the external, I know you've kind of run through this before. The external are three unrelated people to us, correct? They're experts in the field. And in the past, so how does the internal panel work? Is it everybody together with this one person, or do they meet individually with the person?
Everybody together. And again, this is sort of very common in our municipal setting. We'll have a standard set of questions that we're going to ask of all the candidates. And the panelists will get assigned their, one question or a couple of questions. So it's essentially, panelists asking a question and then another panelist asking a question. But again, each candidate is getting asked the same questions. And then
I'm just curious, because it's so different than a kind of a corporate where you go from person to person, meet with them alone. How do the internal people, the stakeholders, do they have then meet together to kind of confer on what they think as a group? Does that happen after?
At the end of the day, right? Yeah.
Okay. And then just if you have like 5, 6 candidates, do you do them all on the same day?
We do. Yep. And so what we'll typically do, again, with the internal and external panel is, let's say candidate, A and B come in at 9 a.m. Candidate A starts with the internal panel, candidate B starts with the external panel, and then those candidates switch panels. And then the next group of 2 will come in, and then the next group of 2 will come in. And so that's sort of how we're able to manage our day and kind of get that done, that first round in the process, get that all done in the same day.
Okay. And then one more question, because I just want people to hear this, right? Like getting a lot of questions on, our town planner. So it says the Board of Selectmen, it needs to appoint somewhere. Does having one person on the panel make that the Board of Selectmen appointing this person? Does that count as that? Is that?
No, we actually vote on it at our meeting, Wendy.
Okay. That's what I was going to say. So we do still have, we have one person on the panel, but yeah, it's still going to come to the board to approve the person that we're hiring, or to this group, right?
Like what we just did with the town clerk, the exact same thing.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. And then as far as the internal panel goes, I know I've shared some thoughts on that, for this coming time. Where do we formalize that and invite the people, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's just standard process for us. So I've already got that underway. As I mentioned, I've reached out to the chairs. They are willing to participate and to help. So I've sent them the date. We've already started securing external panelists for the date as well. So that's just all administrative that we take care of. Okay,
because I was going to share with this group, just some because of the feedback and the impact to the business community. I've suggested to see if Sarah Nielsen should be part of the panel as someone who deals regularly with our town planner. I've also, I'm just presenting it here to see what people think. Tom Roy has a big role with our town planner and works hand in hand with him or her. So I was thinking, maybe he steps up to the internal panel. And then the other thought, I think we kind of might have talked about this. Do we include the current team, either, Tom, as he's acting as assistant, is he part of the panel? Like, where does he come into play? Or does he just get a chance does his department get a chance to meet this person?
Yes, as part of the second round, we usually do the meeting with the departmental staff at the second round.
Okay. And the other question I had too is how long, so the posting went out, and how long do we keep the posting out there to make sure that everybody hears about it, right?
So we did open until filled because again, we received the resignation notice around the holidays, which is generally a very difficult time to recruit and a very slow time for recruiting. So we did an open until filled approach. We did post shortly before the holidays, and we posted not only to the state professionals, we posted to Southern New England APA, Northern New England APA, National APA, National Community Development Association. So we made sure to do a pretty wide-reaching net for professionals in the field. Okay, good. And then just one last question. I know it's related, and we had talked, I think, as a group about
that Tom was going to serve as our interim. So is that happening until we hire somebody?
He's currently serving as acting. Our former planning director had committed to trying to find some interim help. He unfortunately was not able to get to that task before he left. So I took that on this week. I already have several leads I'm going to be reaching out to see if we can get some interim help. The assistant town planner is able to serve as acting director under their job description, but they are very busy, and it's been my desire all along to try and assist them and perhaps getting some extra help, similar to when our town clerk left. We had a former town clerk who came and has been helping several days a week. So just, I'd really like to try to do that if possible. As I mentioned, our former director had hoped to set that up for us before he left. He was unable to do that. So I'm taking that task on myself now.
Okay. So I had thought we were trying to have Tom do it. Is that not happening?
I mean, he is currently serving in that capacity. I don't think he has a desire to serve in that capacity for any, great length of time. And I certainly want to do my best to respect that for him, but also want to try to get them some extra help during this period of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you explain a little bit about how the initial cut is made? Like, how many do we get, like a report back on how many people applied for the position and which ones we decided to bring in for round one, and maybe who didn't make the cut and why?
I mean, we could perhaps provide a summary. I would probably not do that in open session. Under Connecticut FOIA, might correct me if I'm wrong about this, but my understanding has always been is that generally, an applicant's materials are not disclosable until a point in which time that the candidate has been selected for the position. So we typically keep those materials very confidential. I've already discussed that with several of the potential panelists. My office does the screening for candidates. Melissa and I at this point in time have about 4 individuals that we're interested in seeing, potentially 5. And again, it is open until filled. So we may see some other, good candidates come across our desk between now and the interview date that we could certainly make room for.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking more of general, like how many applied, if they were screened out because perhaps they didn't have background or experience, or I don't know what kind of criteria, but I was just curious if we got any.
Generally speaking, under both forms of government that I've lived under, in both the first selectman and the town manager, the board of selectmen, but for the highest position, which would be Maria's, we don't get involved at the granular level. That the chief executive officer of the community is empowered to do their job that they get paid for, to go find talent, bring talent forward, screen talent, and then recommend talent for appointment to us. Over the years, given sensitivity to certain roles, responsibilities, positions, and certainly because we sign off at the end, both the first select women of the past and the town manager have included us and key stakeholders to make sure that there's large community buy-in. I remember when I think it was either Mary or Lisa. I was brought in at the end to have lunch with a planning director. Kind of as that second round, before we affirmed kind of thing, but I wasn't part of the interview panel in the past. So there's been variations of how this has been done to bring key talent in. I'll be honest with you, Maria's is probably, and this is not a criticism of any folks, probably the most transparent in that, it's brought here, it's discussed. Whereas, the first select people in the past, it's what they just did. And, candidly, we didn't ask any questions at personnel. And I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with us asking questions here, but it was a bit different in that, for decades, the first select people would bring these folks in, and unless there was something really controversial or challenging, the boards would essentially rubber stamp. And I'm not suggesting in any way that we rubber stamp here, because these are critical roles. But as we've evolved and learned, it's really about, do we trust Maria's process? And, I candidly, from my standpoint, I do. I think it's pretty darn good. I agree with bringing in community stakeholders, Maria, as you have. Obviously, Sarah's input is huge as she's working with developers and the real estate community and property owners, on that front end. So, if she's interested in being on the front end interview, would love her perspective. Perhaps the chamber as a meet and greet later, they deal more on the back end. There's a lot of ways to do this, but we also, Maria, as I'm sure you're sensitive to, you don't want to bring in dozens of people either, because it waters down the process. And how do you build consensus, right? Because, ultimately it's your decision at each layer, right? I'm sure you're going to take input from all of these folks, but at the end of the day, you've got to sign off on the candidate that you're bringing to us, right?
Correct.
Right. I would say my question really had more to do with just us getting an idea of how many people are applying for the job, not stepping in, like you said, at a granular level, because I think that the number of applicants that we get can provide us with information about our attractiveness as an employer in general. So I think, it's not really trying to step in and take over the screening process as it is just getting an idea of, how many people have applied and what that says. That's
Amber, let me clarify. I agree with you. I would love those metrics. I didn't mean to come off as disagreeing with you. I do. My only challenge would be it's also the available talent at the time, especially for a department head. You basically have to be unhappy in your role somewhere, not getting paid enough money, wanting to relocate for distance. So 5, 8. I don't know if that means we're attractive or unattractive. It's the available talent pool for these highly specialized department heads. Right. So.
True.
No, that's a very good point, Sean. I mean, we're really seeing this in Connecticut right now, whether it's town managers, finance directors, building officials, assessors, planning directors. There's just not enough people who have gone into the profession and who have worked here in the state. And so towns are going out multiple times and they're just having a very, very difficult time. Most of the town managers that have been hired, as a for example, of late have come from out of state because they just can't find people here. So as Sean said, for the more specialized positions, it's not unusual for it to be a much smaller applicant pool, which is why we knew that going in. So we did a national, posting for the position so we can try to get as far of a reach as possible. But what we've also seen sometimes is that even when you do get a lot of applications, it's not necessarily quality applications or perhaps, people to the level. So for example, I can think back to a position we did a couple of years ago, and I think we had over 75 applications, and there was only one candidate that was really, just like a great candidate. And we did hire that person. We made them an offer, and they came here. So sometimes quantity doesn't always mean quality. And it's about finding that one gem that's the right fit in the bunch. A former town manager I had worked with, who's since retired, but a good mentor, and he said it just takes one, right? It just takes one good person in the badge. You just need that one person, and so that's what we're really looking for, right? Is the best person who's going to be the best fit for the position.
So I just one thing that I only question, is having it open for a month long enough to get enough candidates? Because right after the holidays, are they starting to rethink their career plans, and are they going to finalize their idea to move? And is there an opportunity? Do we keep it open longer, or do we have? Because I saw the potential, which I was going to get to next, for the day is the end of January. Do we feel that's enough time to get spread the word and get the right candidates in? That was just one question.
Yeah, I've been doing this for, again, a very long time, particularly in the municipal space. And, I feel very comfortable with the amount of time we had it posted. We'll be giving candidates about 2 weeks notice for the first round. And especially given the fact that it's COVID, we'll most likely be doing it virtually. And again, it's sort of in our municipal world, 2 weeks, notice for an interview. Usually a lot of communities do a week or less. I tend to not personally like to give anybody any less than a week notice for a potential interview. But at the pace we're currently moving at, the candidates that we are interested in will have about a 2-week lead time on that particular interview date.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that how long if the interview session is on the 28th, that means that you're giving them 2 weeks. So is the job posting still open? Are we shutting the job posting down in a matter of 4 weeks?
Yeah, but it's open until filled, which does give us, the flexibility that if, again, another, potential good or 2 good applications trickle in, that we can add them to the pool. That is a benefit with open until filled.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention on this call, because Amber's here and I see Heather's listening. Normally a Board of Selectmen member is part of the panel. And in the past, Maria has told me that they've used someone on the planning, zoning, or economic development who's familiar with the people. So she's asked me if I want to do it, but I'm going to reach out to you guys individually to see what you think. If you feel you'd like to be on that panel as a representative of zoning, planning, or economic development, I thought we could have that kind of conversation to see who we feel is the best person. So I'm not I'm not cutting anyone out of the process, just working on the process right now.
Just to be clear, I don't need to be on the interview panel, so we'll make it easier from that standpoint. So
Okay.
if you would like me to be, I'm happy to. I've been on about a dozen at this point, but I'm happy to not be on this one if sounds like we've got more than enough folks subscribed for it.
Yep. And then just the other thing, the reason to anybody listening is, there's just why we're asking a lot of questions and we're talking about it here, in our personnel subcommittee is that, there's a lot of conversations out in the public that the businesses are concerned because they liked Mike and they thought Mike did a really good job. And I'm not saying that anybody coming in isn't going to, but the support for our local businesses is obviously important as somebody who's going to, fit into the town department heads group and also do the best job for Simsbury. So. Okay.
Now, Melissa or Eric, did I forget any key components that you feel like we should cover?
No, I think you've hit all the main points.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Okay. So our next item is another oral update on the Technology Task Force and Economic Development Commission new member recruitments.
I'll let Melissa take that.
Okay, so we are looking to schedule interviews for both the EDC vacancies, which there are 2 of currently. We had a vacant seat pop up last year that we are still to fill. And then we had 1 member who did not want to renew for another 3-year term. So we are looking to schedule those interviews. I believe we're looking at the end of the month for that one. Monday the 31st, I think we were hoping. So I should have gotten a scheduling email on that from our office. The other vacancies we're looking to fill are on the Technology Task Force. We have 3 vacancies. That's a 9-person committee, and we have 6 who you reappointed back in December. And so we're looking to do those interviews a week later. I believe it's Monday, February 7th. And we have the chairs of both the committees process with you. And then your recommendations would, of course, go to the full board from there. So we had a good batch of candidates for Tech Task Force when we had posted it 2 years ago. And then, of course, things sort of got stalled and held up when COVID came on. So we are going to revisit that list, make sure the people that applied are still interested. We also got to 1 or 2 newer ones more recently. So we'll be looking at that list. I think for ADC, we just had a couple, 2 or 3 applicants. We'll have to double check on that, but that's where we're at. So hopefully we can get that scheduled and move forward.
Thank you. Okay, so I see that we don't have executive session anymore, and I'm going to ask if somebody would make a motion to adjourn. Oh,
Maria has one more.
Sorry, just real quick. So we are going to have a non-notice meeting regarding strategy to negotiations sort of following this meeting. So if folks could just stay on the link, but we will stop the live stream.
Excellent. So I'll move that we adjourn to this meeting.
I'll second.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.